Hi there, Richland here. And today I wanted to share with you a journal that's actually completed. A lot of people ask me, well, what do you do with your journals? Well, I use them. So I'm going to give you a quick flip of a chunky filled up behemoth of a journal that I have. And I actually made this particular journal for the September 30-day journal challenge on Junk Journal Junkies. It wasn't a swap, it was actually about getting people to use their journals. And so I had plenty of journals and I thought, oh, I'll use one of the ones I have. But then I just on a whim decided to throw one together last minute, and I'm so glad I did because I think this is probably one of my favorite journals. So real quick, I used a hanging file folder for the cover and one big fat signature. On the cover I sewed on some scrapbook paper, some very vintage music paper, and then this image here is actually from my own mixed media album, and this is a page I did a number of years ago based on a tutorial by Laurel Martin of Ontario, Canada, and she put it in the Studio Gallery magazine. And so I followed her tutorial and this is what I came up with. So I shrunk it down because it's quite large in my mixed media art book. Shrunk it down and I put it on here. And poppies might seem strange for September, but here where I live, September is the last hurrah for poppies and they're really beautiful. And so I thought it would be fitting. This journal actually lasted me much longer than September. It has 164 pages in it. So it was so fun to work in. I put a little scrap of lace down here and I used a K & Company brad for closure with just elastic, my favorite closure when I'm making a journal for myself. Scrapbook paper sewn onto the back. Nothing fancy. I did put a tag in here, and on the back I write what dates the journal runs and what it's about. And I stamped a bee on it because September is also the last month for my bees, and I won't see them again until probably sometime early May. So real quick, I'm just going to do a quick flip. I'm not going to show you every single page, and I probably won't talk much, but the papers in here are a mixture of coffee tea dyed papers of all varieties. I forced myself to use the DCWV textile pack, which has some of the most garish papers in the world. I just closed my eyes, flipped to a page, whatever I landed on, I had to use. After coffee dyeing them heavily and baking them, they kind of mellowed out a bit. A little bit of Femra's Vintage Garden, Tsunami Rose, and Dreams, etc. for printables are tucked in here. And if you have any questions about any of the papers, just leave me a comment below and I will get back with you. As you can see on the hanging file folder, when you sew on this, it's so fabulous. So I just did a little handmade crochet doily and a little flower on the front. I don't over embellish before I start a journal. I add so much stuff to it that I really try to keep my pages pretty simple. So here we go. So I like to make flip outs of all varieties. I do not worry about my handwriting. And this gorgeous guy here is my son. I don't worry about my handwriting because my handwriting, we have good days and bad days, so I just don't worry about it. And I hope other people stop worrying about that so much because I think it puts too much pressure on folks. A little pocket here, and I put a little card in here about what this particular journal was for. And I like to do little flip ups with little surprise things underneath of it. This book was pretty much about journaling, but I did need some pockets to tuck things. And so, but I wanted to maximize my writing space. So I came up with my faux pocket, and it's just a flap that comes over, and I have two little flaps of paper, top and bottom. And it has worked beautifully. I just call it the faux pocket because it's not a real pocket. But it does give you a spot here for some private journaling, and it does give you a place to stack quite a few tags and little pieces of paper, and it's held beautifully. This is one I'll use probably in every journal from here on out. So again, like I say, I use scraps and all variety of coffee dyed papers. I write on the backs of my photos, and I do my photos on cardstock, so I can do that because sometimes if it's on photo paper, it smears. The other thing about photo paper, if you live in a climate like I do where it's really dry and then really humid, you want to make sure that your photo paper isn't sticking to your other pages and getting gummy. So I use the cardstock and it works perfectly. So I used some pages also from my own mixed media book, and I blew some of them up and shrunk some of them down. So some of the papers in here that you don't recognize are probably from my own mixed media album. So again, I kind of have a theme a lot of times when I start writing, and for me this whole journal was really a lot about focusing on coziness, and as we're heading into winter. I do take pictures of the knitting projects that I'm working on, and I do keep a running list of what I'm working on as far as any kind of craft project. So little pops of color here and there with washi tape, and really super duper simple. I'll find a card I like, I'll write on the back of it, especially if I want it to be private. But yeah, this is how I work. So I'm just going to do a quick flip. And if you have any questions, you can certainly leave me a comment below and I'll be happy to answer it. This was a piece of junk mail that came. It was from a college, and I just cut the college name off and used it in my journal because the colors were so pretty, and it did say fall on it, and I was able to write on the back of it a tag from the thrift store. The one side was blank. I just stamped a flower on it. So, this is some of that DCWV paper. It is, like I say, it's a little garish. So it's really just filled up with stuff about my life and my family's life and what we're doing. And this is something fun that I got to show you. I went to a writers conference in September. It was really a lot of fun. And at the conference, there were authors and whatnot who had, their little business cards for their books that are out, or illustrators that had wonderful little bookmarks to show off their talents and to give you their business information. So that was great. And then there was this, The Fisherman and the Sperm Thief, A Tale of Fenrir. And I'm just going to put it here. On a planet with 3 women for every man. Now, if you are inclined, you can pause the video here and read that. But it is a real book by Lizzie Newell, who is a local author, and it's a science fiction book. So I just thought I'd throw that in there because, who could pass that up? I certainly couldn't pass it up. I just thought that was so intriguing. So I just really, piece from my junk journal or my mixed media to put, little copies of in my junk journal. I tuck little things in here, Sudoku puzzles. Sometimes I'll just put a loose piece of something in just for the sound of it. But really nothing fancy because I really do a lot of writing. And so for me, that's what I want. So I said goodbye to September. So this part here is September. And that's pretty chunky. That's a journal in and of itself. And then said hello to October. And I hosted a craft tea the first day of October, which was really so much fun. And we still had grass, no snow yet. But it was a really wonderful day. And so, for me, again, a lot of stuff about what's going on in my life, in the community. This is a book that's super positive. Anybody could pick this up and read it. And that's what I always say. When you are working in your journals, a lot of times people tend to want to dump a lot of negativity into it. And when you make something beautiful like this, why do that? So I keep my journals very positive. And really, it's all about, the good things in life. My son had child development, and so he had to wear the pregnancy vest, and then he ended up with the fake baby coming home, and we just called the baby John Betty because you couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl, and we just treated John Betty like it was a real baby. We totally spoiled John Betty, but John Betty was a crier. So it was a good experience for my son to realize that babies do cry. Now I leave some pages blank because I have photos and different little bits and pieces of memorabilia that I tuck in here later on. And the other thing about my journals that is probably odd for most people is I do not work in any particular order. So while I have a lot of, stuff in here, at the very back, is another one of my mixed media pieces, is a Halloween page. But I just thought it went well with this particular paper, so I just put it back here. And as I always say, it's my journal, so I can work in it any way I want to. But I just wanted to show you, that's how I work in my journals. I do not worry about keeping it pristine. I don't worry about making it a work of art. I think that puts too much pressure on people. The beauty of journals is just to write down the memories and to save them. And this is a book that will be saved. And at some point, you know, hopefully my son will sit down and read it one day and read it to his grandkids or let them read it. And they'll have an idea of our life at this period in time. And that they will recognize that, man, Dad had a really good life. And his mom wasn't so bad, even if he says she was. So that's my little September 30-day challenge journal. Thank you, Yvonne, for hosting that. It was really a lot of fun. I was very sick at the beginning of September. And this little journal was my little companion when I wasn't able to really get out and around. So I really enjoyed it. I was able to use it all the way through most of December. And I just really, you know, this is like a little treasure. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you so you could see how I actually use my journals. And again, if you have any questions, just leave me a comment below and I will get back with you. Thanks for watching.